Good morning, everyone. I hope we have all the participants. Welcome to our new European Bauhaus event. My name is Agata Janaszczyk. I'm the research counselor at the Polish permanent representation to the EU. And I'm very happy to welcome you to the webinar that is entitled, How Will the New European Bauhaus Change Europe's R9 Mindset? A very interesting topic. We have very distinguished guests with us, but first of all, I would like to welcome everyone. Unfortunately, Ambassador Andrzej Sadoś couldn't be here with us today due to his other commitments. So if you allow me, I will deliver the welcome speech to you on his behalf. So ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, it's my great pleasure to welcome you at the webinar organized by the Permanent Representation of Poland to the EU and the Office of the National Center for Research and Development in Brussels, Business and Science Poland. Today we will discuss the concept of and the implementation of the new European Bauhaus with the focus on research and innovation aspects. Its goal is to connect the European Green Deal to our daily lives and living spaces. A statement that reflects it very well is the one that President von der Leyen stated, if the European Green Deal has a soul, then it is the new European Bauhaus, which has led to an explosion of creativity across our union. Therefore, we need to bring a variety of stakeholders like citizens, experts, businesses, and institutions together to allow for an in-depth discussion, but also a better connection and a space for experimentation. Jointly, and with the help of EU funding that is provided, we will be able to imagine and build together a sustainable and inclusive future. I hope that today's workshop will constitute such a platform for connecting experts and for discussing, as well as contributing to the creation of a framework for ambitious solutions for the implementation of the new European Bauhaus. I would like to wish you a very fruitful meeting and many good projects resulting from it. Now I will go on to an introduction and to an understanding that we have for the moment of the new European Bauhaus. It's a very comprehensive project, and this project links a global and a local level, but also participatory and transdisciplinary approach. As I mentioned, we have to include many different layers and many different stakeholders, also citizens, that I want to stress here, because this is a new approach that we're testing on the European level. So I would like to underline this aspect here. And the thematic axis of the transformation of the new approach are basically three. So sustainable, beautiful, and together. And we at the European level have to make a link between those three axes and to make them implementable, basically. The approach that has been taken at the European level is basically in line with the strategic planning. So what we have seen, what has been discussed in the preparation of the implementation of the first strategic plan of Horizon Europe is also reflected in the new European Bauhaus approach. In the first work program for 2021 and 2022, the approach that has been taken to the funding was mainly focused on marking the goals that would be in line with the priorities of the new European Bauhaus. What we have are the lighthouses that have been selected. There is specific and dedicated funding in Horizon Europe for the implementation of the new European Bauhaus. There was a coordination and support action, 25 million euros, just to see how the implementation could be done. But in the next work program, there will be more focused funding and more focused actions to link the priorities of the European Bauhaus, also of the Green Deal, that is a very important axis of the European Bauhaus, with specific actions and specific funding. Having read the report, we can also see that one of the important elements of the European Bauhaus is the suggested mission. So the experts thought that the mission, which the European Bauhaus is already linked to, so it's linked to the existing missions, but the experts thought that it would be important to have a dedicated mission. But of course, it's not really for me to discuss those topics. I just wanted to give you a broad and maybe a bit superficial introduction to the topic, because the experts are here with us, and they will be able to tell us a lot more, and they will be able to go much more into detail than me. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from the experts what they would like to share with us. But before we go to the experts, I would like to give the floor to Ewa Kocińska-Lange, the director of the Office of the National Center for Research and Development in Brussels, Business Science Poland, who will share with you the technical details of the meeting, but also she will introduce our experts and she'll start the meeting. Ewa, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Agata, for this introduction, for the welcome, also for the welcome on behalf of the ambassador. We regret that he couldn't be with us, but it's happening sometimes indeed. So thanks a lot for your introductory remarks as well. And yeah, I have the pleasure to manage and to lead the office and the team of National Center for Research and Development here in Brussels. And we do as much as we can to inform about what's happening in Brussels, around Horizon Europe, in Horizon Europe, a bit outside of Horizon Europe, but still in relation to research and innovation. And European Bauhaus is one of the very hot topics recently. There are quite a lot of them, but this one is also is new. It is also quite attractive. So that's why we concluded together with Agata from Permanent Representation to do an event. The event is not only directed to Polish participants, although we have quite a lot, of course, from Poland, which is natural, but we also have participants from other countries since we are cooperating here in Brussels with other partners. So please all feel free to ask questions to our experts. Use the chat for that, please. That's the way to communicate with us. If you have also some other issues, some technical things, please also put them in the chat. Let us know. We will try to help. You will also receive all the slides, all the presentations afterwards, after the event from the system, let's say. So you can have a look also afterwards. And I think the click meeting system, the one we are using now, is quite straightforward. So for the technical things, I would say that's it. But the key thing I wanted to say is indeed to introduce our experts. We are very happy. We have with us speakers from, let's say, different angles of the Bauhaus story. So first will be an intervention by Marcin Kardas, who's stepping in for the president of Łukasiewicz Research Network, and Marcin is director of the Research Innovation Department at the Center for Łukasiewicz Research Network, and the network itself is the contact point, kind of coordination point in Poland for the European Bauhaus. So welcome, Marcin. Nice to have you with us. Then we have a presentation about the relations with European Bauhaus and citizens engagement. That's actually quite crucial. And for that, we have together with us Angela Pereira, who is a team leader for citizens engagement exactly at the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. Welcome, Angela. After that, we will have a bit of more direct relations. We will talk about the direct relations of Bauhaus with Horizon Europe, but that not only, and that will be delivered by Bent Bivet from the European Commission, from DG Research Innovation, and he's responsible for the unit dealing with ecological and social transitions. And last but definitely not least, we are having with us Professor Barbara Widera, and she's one of the rapporteurs of the report of the European Bauhaus Nexus report. That's exactly the report who's dealing with links between Horizon Europe and Bauhaus, and giving some recommendations from the experts to the Commission and to different stakeholders about those links between those initiatives. And Professor is working on daily basis at Wrocław University of Technology in Poland. And after that, we will have a Q&A. So please use the chat. As I said, you can ask questions all the time, and we will come back to them during Q&A, and hopefully we will be able to answer them all. Yeah, okay. So I think that's for the introduction from our side. That's it. If you have some questions, as I said, please put them in the chat, and I guess we can give the floor now to Marcin to start the main part of our event to actually explore the Bauhaus in more detail. Marcin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eva and Agata. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to be here on behalf of Piotr Dardziński, the president of Łukasiewicz Research Network, who is the national contact point for a new European Bauhaus in Poland. The idea is really fascinating, but also very complicated. So please give me some short introduction to this topic, but also information about my organization, because I think that for some people here in this room, it would be the first time when you can get information about Łukasiewicz Research Network. So to start with this initiative, we usually use this citation of Aristotle. The beauty is a greater recommendation than any letter of introduction. That we know that it's a simplification, and it's quite difficult to visualize Bauhaus with this citation. However, I will back to this in a few minutes and few slides, and I will give you information how this citation change our thinking about this initiative. So the European Bauhaus is an environmental, economic, and cultural initiative proposed by the President of European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. And the idea is quite new, because it was proposed 3 years ago. However, it refers to the concept of Bauhaus that was developed before the Second World War in Germany. And Bauhaus promoted a modern approach to art and architecture based on combination of modern aesthetic and functionality. And through such art and architecture promote openness, discussion, and exchange of views. New European Bauhaus is focused to accelerate the transformation of various sectors of industry, especially related to construction and architecture, to ensure that all citizens will have access to modern aesthetic solutions and products that are, of course, in line with ideas or principles of circular economy. So the initiative started in 2020 and is now developed in 3 phases. The first phase took place in 2021 and was focused mainly on place-based knowledge economy, and it was the first phase designing phase. Since 2021, there has been implemented some actions related to implement this initiative, and now we are engaged in some of them with the goal to disseminate the results and promote the results among different countries, especially local communities. As we mentioned, the European Bauhaus is interdisciplinary and intersectoral approach with the main goal to accelerate the transformation of various sectors related to construction, but also architecture, furniture, textiles, or fashion. It's also important to note that European Bauhaus should promote social cohesion and also address challenges like, for example, housing problems that are facing many countries, including Poland in recent times. The European Bauhaus should also allow to strengthen cooperation between local players, especially researchers, entrepreneurs, but also people dealing with culture, heritage, and responsible for local development. Talking about European Bauhaus, we also need to think about shaping available living spaces and improving the quality of living environment in line with principles of sustainable, inclusive, and aesthetic development. Finally, it's also about funding. What is the most important for us in this idea? There are four pillars that you can see on this slide. So it's about transition, about transformation, consisting or based on new technologies that propose new products, services, or solutions that are environmental friendly, which stimulate inclusiveness and improving social cohesion, and that are functional. According to our role, I mentioned that Łukasiewicz Research Network and our president, our national contact point in Poland for this initiative. So let me give you some short information about our activities. Łukasiewicz Research Network is the largest research technology organization in Central Eastern European countries, consisting of 26 research institutes and 7,000 employees. We are also quite young organization because Łukasiewicz Research Network was established in 2019 and was formed on the basis of 38 research institutes. Now, as you can see, there are only 26 research institutes, but it means that we are under transformation, reorganization processes. So the idea of transformation, reorganization is quite natural for us. We have very good access to modern infrastructure, and what is the most important, people with skills and competences. Our institutes are located in different parts of Poland, and our research activities are focused on three thematic areas like sustainable economy and energy, digital transformation, smart and clean mobility, and healthy living. What is distinguishing us from other organizations is that we have developed very, I think, original system called Łukasiewicz Challenges as a one window for our stakeholders, especially business partners. So responding to their needs, we are ready to offer them in 15 days information about the team of people skilled with necessary competence to address the challenge or technological problem. We can offer a preliminary schedule and budget for the implementation of this idea. It's very important if we talk about stakeholders, especially small, medium-sized companies, because they don't need to get information about our institutes. They need only to fulfill very short information on our webpage, and then we can start cooperation with them and help them answer to some technological and organizational problems. For over the last 2 years, we managed to organize 1,420 challenges, which is quite, I think, a high number with 638 companies. And if you can see on this slide, the success rate is also quite high. 24% of all challenges resulted in concrete deals with companies and projects implemented by our organization and companies. We are also very active at international level, so we are trying to play a role of orchestrator or a bridge between Polish companies, especially small, medium-sized enterprises, and European organizations responsible for research and development. We are very active, especially in EIT communities. We are a member of 5 EIT communities, but we are also engaged in organizations like, for example, ARTO, or we are also very active at partnerships in Horizon Europe. So we can link Polish stakeholders with European players, which I think is also very important in the case of new European Bauhaus. We are also investing our own funding to develop some new solutions and technologies, taking into account also areas that are very important from the point of view of the initiative of European Bauhaus, like, for example, modular construction. So we are investing our funding to build research teams and address technological problems in different technological fields to offer new solutions for our stakeholders. And one of example of this is you can find here. So in this modular construction program, we are developing technologies related to production, energy saving, but also building materials that are environmental friendly, or we are focusing also in developing technology for processing and recycling. I have mentioned about our inspiration for European Bauhaus, and for us the idea of European Bauhaus means also some transition or transformation, because by now we have focused mainly on developing new technologies that are environmental friendly, and our researchers can do this very well. However, what is lacking in our approach is the elements of inclusiveness and functionality, and this is the added value of European Bauhaus for us, that could allow us to think broader and find new areas that are also extremely important for our stakeholders. According to European Bauhaus, we are fully aware that this idea is very broad, but we also try to find some solutions or initiative actions that could be implemented in our country or neighboring countries. And we think that our input in this field, very interesting initiative that is in our opinion in line with the idea of European Bauhaus, is the idea of superstructures and blocks from large concrete slabs. We know that this is technically and economically possible, and it allows us to address the problem of housing in Central Eastern European countries. We are now in contact with colleagues from other countries like, for example, Bulgaria or Romania, Slovakia, and they are also interested about this topic. So we will be very grateful also for your opinions, because we think that it could be a very good topic that we could propose at European level and develop in cooperation with you. Of course, if you have any other ideas how we could contribute to the development of a European Bauhaus, then please contact with us, because this dialogue is still open, and we are trying to find some solutions that could address problems and challenges signaled to us by our stakeholders, but also from other countries. I would like to also give you some short information about upcoming activities, because the most important event in coming days will be European Bauhaus Festival that will be organized from 9th to 12th June in Brussels. So it's a really huge event with many panels and discussions, and I think that it could be very inspiring for all of us. The second important information is that the European Commission is very active to support bottom-up initiatives. So it's still possible to apply for support in European Bauhaus local initiative program, and European Commission offers technological and organizational support for those local communities under the threshold of 100,000 inhabitants that want to develop ideas that are in line with new European Bauhaus. And finally, what's especially interesting for organizations like Łukasiewicz Research Network, but also universities, are open calls in Horizon Europe program, because I need to say that the European Commission decided to put 95 million euro to support pilot projects that are in line with new European Bauhaus concept, and many calls are open for us, so we can benefit from them, prepare application, propose our activities, but please take into account that in Horizon Europe we should focus on projects with very strong elements of research and development activities. If you have some ideas and want to work on that, please contact with us. We will support your activities in cooperation with the national contact point that is responsible for supporting Polish researchers and entrepreneurs in applying for Horizon Europe funding. There are also some interesting activities in Poland, so let me start with this event that will be organized on Monday in Wrocław. It will be organized by Hubert Tramer, who is the member of a high-level group dealing with European Bauhaus. We will be also there, so if you want to discuss with us about some ideas that could be implemented under the framework of European Bauhaus, it will be great opportunity to discuss with you. And finally, our event organized by Łukasiewicz Research Network is a side event to the festival in European Bauhaus, and this event will be organized in Poznań on the 9th of June, and It will be a great also opportunity to discuss about the main topics related to new European Bauhaus. The advantage of this event is that it will be the largest research and development event in Poland with more than 1,000 participants. So it's also a great opportunity to get contact with researchers and entrepreneurs interested in applying for Horizon projects. And finally, talking about European Bauhaus, is very good to take into account some initiatives and examples of these activities. And we want to give you some examples related to the proposals submitted to European Bauhaus festivals, but by Polish organization. You can find them in our presentation. And if you are from Poland, that probably those ideas are very familiar for you. The first one is Rokietnica, the second is Modular Shutter Gardens, and the third folk concept. So we as a Poland also have some input and impact of new European Bauhaus. So thank you very much for your attention, and if you have some questions, please put them in the chat. I will stay with you by the end of this webinar. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Marcin. It was a very interesting and a very rich presentation, and I see that there is really a lot going on in Poland in the area of New European Bauhaus. A lot of examples that you've given. So really a way to go, and a lot of upcoming events as well. You said about the 30th of May, but also the 9th of June in Poznań. I see that there is a question in the chat. I will read it out. If you could answer, but also any other expert who is here with us, feel free to take the floor. I will read the question first. Can you elaborate more about health living frameworks and strategic actions initiatives in the context of the New European Bauhaus?
Mm-hmm. So I put this example as one of areas that our institute are dealing with. So in terms of new European Bauhaus, maybe there is no direct link. However, I think that talking about social cohesion, we can find some links here also.
I see that.
If I may,
yes, of course.
add, or perhaps Angela or Bernd would be better to answer this question. But in the meantime, I've seen this question on the chat, and just to give you a very, very brief insight, clearly I will be talking about this a little bit more while discussing the report. But anyways, some topics that are relevant to New European Bauhaus could be found in two clusters. So it would be health and digital. And something that might be underestimated would be cluster 6. And this is under destination. Cluster 6 is food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment, of course. But this will be under destination circular economy and bioeconomy sectors. And when I'm looking at what we have developed by flagging the topics which might be of your interest where you are asking, this would be, for example, let me open the work program, and it would be, for example, call for smart solutions and smart rural communities, empowering rural communities and smart villages to innovate for societal change. And there is a particular call about resilient, inclusive, healthy and green rural, coastal and urban communities. And if I'm looking at the insight to the report, These are, for example, two-stage call in cluster 6, developing nature-based therapy for health and well-being. In relation to this topic, the role of healthy, inclusive, and beautiful built environment, it's strongly underestimated, so we have flagged it, and most likely it will be connected to link, and anyway, the proposals are more than welcome to underline it. And also there will be something in my presentations regarding, for example, healthy sleep, and this is the second founding period. And I have found one more. It's about communities, also under cluster 6, assessing and improving labor conditions and health and safety at work in framing. So the relevance to NEP would be in relation to this topic, the role of, again, healthy, inclusive, and beautiful built environment. You should be accentuated a little bit stronger. So if I were you, if you are asking about the healthy living frameworks, I would be looking at the calls under cluster 6 at the first place, and of course under work program you will find some more details how to approach it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those answers. I see that in the meantime, Martin is already answering questions about the Innovatorów in Poznań, and also he's providing links, but I see that there is another question to Martin now, I think specifically. Could you please tell me more about the superstructure project in Łukasiewicz Center? Is it still open to new ideas for revitalizing blocks from large concrete slabs?
Yes, it's still open idea, so I would like to invite Kajetan to direct contact with me and my colleague Krzysztof Mędzyński, who is the author of this project. So Kajetan, please contact with me, and we organize separate meeting to discuss this issue. But it's a really very actual topic, and it's still an open project.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I think it's time for us to move to the next presentation. Now the topic is New European Bauhaus and citizens' engagement. This is something I also mentioned at the beginning of our event. And we have here Angela Pereira with us, team leader for citizens' engagement in the Joint Research Center. Angela, the floor is yours.
Dzień dobry, and it's the only thing I can say in Polish. I'm sorry about that. First of all, I want to thank you very much for inviting me to present this work that we have done last year in June. It's a piece of work that I really like to talk about. So the story that I'm about to tell you concerns actually an invitation and somehow a determination of two director generals in the commission. So the RTD Director General, Jean-Henri Paquet, and also my own Director General at the Joint Research Center, Stefan Quest. The idea that research and innovation engage citizens from the start and by default. It turned out also to be a quite transdisciplinary endeavor, as the new European Bauhaus actually is grounded on. So I would, in immediate response to the question of this workshop, I would say that the mindsets the change of the mindsets are in the making. And we just had the end of the conference on the future of Europe on 9th May, which also has changed a lot the way in which citizens will be engaged and are engaged in policy making at the Commission. So So this particular story that I will talk about is indeed engaging citizens in the new European Bauhaus. It happens prior to the big networking event of the DGRTD called R&I Days. And the idea was to have citizen engagement about a big project of the union prior to these R&I Days, to inform also this event and the new European Bauhaus itself. Now, the new European Bauhaus initiative, the narrative of the new European Bauhaus is already strongly anchored on ideas of extended participation. So there is a website where people can leave ideas, different, whoever wants to give ideas, but also there is a tool to make sense of the proposals that are submitted there. But of course, as we all know, having a website doesn't mean that, you know, the ordinary person in the street will get actually engaged with the project. So it is the duty of those who have these large projects to actually create space for this to happen, so that, you know, especially people that are in more vulnerable situations actually also have a say on how these projects are implemented. So the idea here of engaging citizens prior, you know, prior to the policy, to the drafting of the policy of is key, because it means that citizens are actually engaged on the framing of the problems, okay, deciding what are the issues for them, and so these are not decided by, you know, specific elites and specific stakeholders. So it's broadening the framing of the issues. Then this happened in June last year. We were full in COVID-19 context. Well, we still are, but then it was probably more dramatic. And the idea of engaging citizens in the European Bauhaus then was to understand with citizens, you know, we need to reconsider our relationship to private and public spaces. And so we needed to understand what were some scholars call the matters of care. So what people care about, but also what people are prepared to act upon. So not just concerns, but what would they be prepared to take steps to diminish the impacts and so on. So in a nutshell, well, citizen engagement for our competence center on participatory and deliberative democracy is about creating these safe spaces to have these meaningful conversations. So that's why we embrace this endeavor. We launched this initiative around a question: how do we want to live together in post-COVID-19 times? Because of time and also resources constraints, we were only able to implement 3 large citizens panels in 3 different countries, Bulgaria, Estonia, and Poland. And in these, under 20 citizens were involved, and they were all randomly selected according to a profile that we gave to a professional agency. So this is very important. So it was not a result of an expression of interest, but actually, you know, according to profiles of people, identifying ordinary citizens that would come and discuss this question, this main question that we had. The whole design of the process was done by us as competence center, and the encounter with the citizens was online, and it was over one day, and it was of course facilitated in mother tongue. So what was our question? So the question was, and what was the challenge posed to the citizens? So well, the COVID crisis has thrown our lives off track, right? So now, as we were slowly getting out of the pandemic, and we are still there, but okay, we see ourselves faced with the need to reconsider our relationship to private and public spaces. And so, and the whole experience that were forced on us, so all these lockdowns and so on and so forth, also reopen, our own interrogation about the relationship to the spaces where we live, where we work, meet, and play. And so many of us now felt an increased need for togetherness and for community, or experience a desire to reconnect with nature. But the challenge was, okay, but this needs new thinking and communities coming together to collectively address the challenges. So this was the challenge that we launched to our citizens. I'm now going to show you a little video that was produced from I'm not being able to launch the video. Can someone help me on the technical side, because it's not working?
Yeah, we will try. Although I'm not sure. Indeed, something is apparently wrong here. Sorry for that. You will
because
check
I don't have the control of the. So that the start of the video is on the.
Yeah, my colleague is checking. We will come
on the
back.
Slide itself.
Yeah, but slide is indeed not visible at the moment.
Because I can't touch the slide. That's I only can move the slide. So.
Just a second.
Okay. So I'm just before. Well, I don't know if we are going to be able to pass the video or not, but basically the video contains some statements from citizens themselves, and also their reflection about the process, where they actually were intrigued and also grateful for having the opportunity of participating in such types of exercise that usually are appear to them very remote and very difficult to influence. So I think I will just move on, and then if we meantime can.
Yeah, just a clarification. Indeed, we have some technical problems, so at the moment it will not be possible. I'm sorry for that, for the video.
So what happened in a nutshell from all these exercises, what we found was that the health and being healthy was a very important let's say dimension of the riddle of the New European Bauhaus. In the New European Bauhaus, you have the beautiful, the sustainable, and together. Whereas for citizens, the healthy part was a very important dimension, and they didn't think it was enough encapsulated in these three dimensions. Then more three. I selected three more dimensions that they recommended and emerged through the the ideas that they provided. You see on the right side of the slide you have some drawings that were done with my colleague, were done by my colleague Alessandro Rancati after the group's work, and to illustrate, let's say, the projects that they were talking about during the groups. And you see there is something on mobility, something on aging with dignity in the green, and about repurposing buildings. Namely, this one was about an old factory in the region where some participants were from, and they wanted to have it repurposed as a school, for example. So, but the three main things were prominent was reconnecting cities to nature and remaking mobility also in that sense, transgenerational conviviality, designing inclusive and convivial spaces for all ages, and repurposing abandoned infrastructure into educational or convivial spaces. So these were the key dimensions. Now, I have actually, so during the R&I days, in two distinct sessions, representatives of the three groups were presenting their work at the R&I day. So this one, so it's one of the participants, Polish participants, Sylwia Kasuba, and she presented the work that they had done in the group. So, but what we valued a lot in our analysis of this work is really what citizens say. For example, it's very concrete and very situated, very down to earth. It comes from their experience. So what you get from these kinds of engagement is the connection, the immediate connection to the experience of people. So it's not talking in abstract, but what people concretely live every day about the subjects that are being discussed. So I put there a little quote on this. In particular, this presentation was done on a session regarding to the mission on cities, carbon neutral cities. This participant was also another ambassador of the groups, of the Polish group, and she also presented the ideas here. But if you take a moment to read the quote, you see again, that people are not talking in general things, but about very, very concrete things. So this is where also citizens presented their work to Commissioner Gabriel, always at R&I days. And I'm going just to, and what you see in the left is the six sort of, it's 6 titles of the group work of 6 groups that were run with the Polish citizens. This is the talk about sustainable tourism in one group, but on a second group they were very concerned about active citizenship and especially on the need to activate community members, especially the elderly and people with disabilities, and the role of non-governmental organizations and institutions to do that, to prevent social exclusion. They also, for instance, in that second group, they stressed a lot the great role of bottom-up initiatives, which was already mentioned here, from which a lot can be learned as well for the overall and the broader objectives of the new European Bauhaus, and so on and so forth. So there is they focused. It's what is also interesting is that you have 45 citizens meeting together, and they go in subgroups, and each group goes in a different direction. So perhaps doing more of these groups would also kind of for more ideas on this. So I'd like just to give a few reflections on this. So the first thing about citizen engagement is that there was right from the beginning encourage, in the sense that what I mean is that there was a policy process going on, the drafting of a communication on the European Bauhaus. It means that this citizen engagement, was not done as an academic exercise or something to check a box, but actually to try and influence the communication on the European Bauhaus. So the contract with the citizens, so to speak, means what the expectations were from citizens, what the citizens on the other hand could expect from this was quite clear. So their ideas would be, this was an opportunity to somehow influence the policy about the European Bauhaus. So there was immediate follow-up, because all these ideas were presented as in a high-level event. And the 16 ideas that were generated by the whole groups were presented during the Research and Innovation to Commissioner Gabriel, and also to the EU Mission on Cities. What I think it's important also to note is that these outcomes have inspired, other potential European Bauhaus engagements. And this was very important in the house, to understand that this works, this type of process works, and this type of process has value, and it should be done at a larger scale. Right. So, if I have to be a little bit critical about the whole process, I think. It's important that, I would have expected that this would have influenced a little bit more, so that we would not, as the health dimension came so prominently, and this is about framing. So yes, people, wanted to talk about our question, but they also wanted to talk about their real problems, the things that were concerning them at the moment, and so. Probably, the next revision of the European Bauhaus initiative needs to include more prominently this healthy as a dimension of the initiative. So, and I think what this kind of exercises also demonstrate is that there is real potential for local communities and ordinary citizens influence what this project looks like and how it is implemented, and ultimately set example to the question of this very workshop, Europe's R&I mindsets. So what I want to say is that the idea is that needs to be understood here is that what goes on in this initiative cannot just be, established by powerful stakeholders and elites, but needs to actually include in a very, prominent way what communities and citizens think about. And if I may, I will finish in a minute. I was introduced as the leader of the Competence Center on Participatory and Deliberative Democracy of the Commission, and this is exactly the kinds of, the kind of endeavor that we are up to. We are trying to mainstream this type of work of engaging citizens upstream in a meaningful way. So that there can be opportunities for genuine influence in policy in this area. So that's our main objective, and I wanted to stress that. So I'm really open to questions. I also want to say that we will have our own festival on public participation and deliberative democracy in October 2021. So stay tuned. I have put here the QR code of our websites. Thank you, and thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. As you may imagine, we're very happy that you chose Poland to be the testbed for the ideas, that you engaged Polish citizens in the discussion. It's a really novel approach, I have to say, from what I can see, having been here in Brussels and working in EU affairs for a while. I was wondering, I have just an immediate question, because you said that there was an immediate follow-up after those discussions and presentations of the views of the citizens. But I was wondering whether you were planning a continuous process, so whether you would be coming back to the same citizen groups, or whether you would continue this discussion with the citizens in a structured manner throughout the implementation of the new European Bauhaus.
Well, the exercise, as I explained in the beginning, was at the request from director generals for this to happen. The context was the R&I days, but at the same time, the communication on the European Bauhaus was being drafted. So there was an opportunity for the outcomes to influence this policy document. Now, if what you are saying would be my let's say dream process, because I don't one of the things that I recommend is that these kinds of engagements are not one-off initiatives, activities. This should be exactly as you are saying, a continuous process. We tried to, I must say that we tried to the new European, to the Conference on the Future of Europe, we immediately launched some opportunities for more dialogue, specifically targeting young people, because we wanted to dig more on young people. Why? Because young people have been extremely affected by the governance of the pandemics. So we really wanted to connect to them, to talk about sociality, education, and so on and so forth. And I must say that we had very little, let's say, response. And as I said, if we want to be serious about these kinds of process, we need to put money on these processes, because these processes, it's not because you put out there in a web page, an invitation for citizens to step in, that you are going to have the ordinary person and especially the most vulnerable and the ones that usually don't have channels to respond. So if I had more resources, I would have continued this process, because I believe that all of what we do in the Commission should be informed by continuous processes of engagement at all phases.
Thank you. Fair enough. Resources are always an important aspect of the whole picture. I see that there are a couple of questions in the chat. I think we have to hurry up a bit. The first issue is the video that you did not manage to display. Participants would like the link to this video. So if you could just send it in the chat, if you could just send the link in the chat, that would be nice. Then we have a question. My general question about the new European Bauhaus initiative is, what are the success rates of the initiative, at least quantitative or qualitative measures? I will be grateful for their presentation. I'm not sure if you would be ready if there are some statistics available yet, but maybe you could address this question.
I actually am not prepared to address this question, because I must say that I am not part of the European Bauhaus team. So perhaps Bernd is more prepared for that question, but I can find out.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, we could always come back in writing, so it's fine. We have another question here in the chat that I will read out. Sustainable tourism, spatial planning, natural environment, together citizens, better mental health system, etc. These are the key words of the new European Bauhaus. What is the biggest problem that the new European Bauhaus is trying to solve?
Well, the new European Bauhaus is let's say the tangible response to the Green Deal. So it's the biggest problem that we can talk about transformations, energy, and sustainable, and so on and so forth. But these are often very remote. Remote words and remote policies also from the ordinary person. When we are talking about the new European Bauhaus, we get closer to communities. We get closer to what is the local. What we get closer to the everyday life of people. So what we are trying to solve with the new European Bauhaus is this gap, from the abstract policy to the person, to actually go concrete and to change and transform things that respond to the broader objectives of European Union policies in terms of sustainability, and then and inclusiveness and other things, and so having people contributing and experiencing at their level, what does this mean for us, and how can we also all chip in different capacities on attaining those more broader objectives that are embedded in the Green Deal and other policies.
Thank you. I see that Professor Videra would like to comment. If I could just ask you to be concise. We still have 2 presentations, one of which is your own. Thank you.
No, I just wanted to say that it's really great that we have such a concrete questions from Poland. Just give me numbers, give me results, where we are. And I'm pretty sure, Angela, thank you so much for your presentation. It was very, very exciting to see how the things are going on. And also I wanted to tell you, no worries, Gert will give you some numbers, and I will try to give you some answers. What are the most important challenges that NAB is trying to solve? So just stay tuned.
Thank you for this comment. Looking forward to your presentation, Professor. But before that, we thank you very much, Angela, once again. And now we will move over to Bernd Birver, Head of Unit of Ecological and Social Transitions in DG Research and Innovation, who will tell us a bit more about the new European Bauhaus in Horizon Europe and beyond. Bernd, the floor goes to you.
Many thanks, dear Agata, Eva, bardzo dobrze, dziękuję za zaproszenie. That's as far as I can get with my Polish, but I'm very close, also geographically, as half Slovak to your country. So that's why I managed more or less my pronunciation. And I wanted to thank you very, very much for your invitation, for your initiative, Barbara, great to see you back, even if unfortunately virtually. We managed to see us physically when we were discussing your report, and look forward to your presentation a bit later. I wanted to say at the beginning of my presentation a few more general words before I come to the R&I dimension and Horizon Europe in particular. And Angela, thanks you already re-emphasized the link of Bauhaus, New European Bauhaus, to the European Green Deal. We see the new European Bauhaus initiative indeed as part of as an essential part of the European Green Deal, to bring it closer to our citizens, to make it a tangible, positive experience. And in the current context, and the Polish colleagues are very much even more exposed than in Brussels to what's going on east of our border. I just wanted to use also this opportunity to stress that there might be temptations to say that similar as to COVID, that Green Deal issues are becoming less relevant, or maybe going drastically down from the priority list of the European Union. And this is absolutely not the case. The European Green Deal is even more important in the current context. You might have seen that last week the European Commission has come up with a huge package which we have called Repower EU, where we try to reduce, to cut our dependence on Russian fossil fuels. And the Green Deal is a very important tool to contribute to this by better diversifying. And I know that Poland has done already a lot by boosting, of course, renewables, by putting even more efforts into the issue of energy efficiency and energy savings. The more we save energy, the less we need to import also energy sources. So Green Deal and Bauhaus remains extremely important, and I hope we can soon also turn and go into issues of reconstructing societies, and in particular Ukraine, where of course we need to see this then as an opportunity in the sense to wisely use the investments for our future and for the future of our neighbors. And there the Green Deal and the Bauhaus also do play a very important role. So I wanted to say this at the outset, since we are living currently in very difficult and worrying times, and we should not lose, of course, the Green Deal as one of our contributions also to future solutions. The three inseparable values which define Bauhaus: sustainability, inclusion, aesthetics, are important to recall, and they play a role then in the R&I dimension, in what we are trying to support with Horizon Europe. Obviously, sustainability extremely important. You know that we are striving to make Europe by 2050 a climate neutral continent. We have launched a huge a package of initiatives in various fields, including energy efficiency, buildings, transport, agriculture, energy production, but also energy demand. We are putting a lot of efforts in technological solutions, and there obviously R&I can play a huge role, but we should not lose sight of the societal dimension, the human dimension. Angela spoke about already about the citizens' engagement and involvement, the just transition aspect, to leave no one behind, is extremely important, particularly in carbon-intensive regions. In my previous life, I've been involved already in some initiatives for carbon-intensive regions, including in Poland, Germany, Bulgaria, Greece, where it's of course very important to make sure that we demonstrate that what we are doing has an added value for everyone. It costs a lot to invest in our future and to fight global warming, but the cost of non-action are of course much higher. And then the third aspect, aesthetics, which is not obviously easy to define, to quantify, but which is also important when you look at the very complex regulatory measures which are being discussed, that there can be an aesthetic dimension behind. This is what the Bauhaus movement was about at its origin, and the new European Bauhaus wants to include this aspect, the quality of experience, style, lifestyle, beyond functionality. I also very quickly at the outset wanted to recall what our colleagues in JRC, so who are working with Angela and who have the lead on the Bauhaus initiative, have been formulating as guidance for our activities in other commission departments. And the activities want to aim at better reconnecting to nature, to regain a sense of belonging, prioritizing places, people that need it most, and then the necessity for long-term life cycle thinking. I'm just recalling this here because these are important aspects which we want to then support also with our research activities. It has already been said that what we are aiming at is cross-policy, cross-program, so no silo mentality, not a single department only who's working. We want really all policy departments in the Commission to work and to launch activities, and they have already many have already done so. Therefore, so the question of one of the participants about the success rate is not easy to explain. I mean, we have construed the process as very much as bottom up, as very broad. You have obviously success rates when you are applying for projects. Usually, projects are heavily oversubscribed, so the success rate is necessarily not extremely high. We have the JRC in the lead is organizing the Bauhaus prizes, also with a lot of interest to participate. So a lot of activities are going on, including with the NAP Lab and the festival, which has already been mentioned. And I hope that many colleagues, participants can also virtually or physically, and mostly virtually, participate. Barbara is going to talk about the Nexus report, so I'm not going to say a lot about it at this place. A huge thanks to her and colleagues. Barbara was really instrumental in moving this process forward. In the Commission, we were tasked in the communication from September 21 to organize a workshop where we would look how Horizon Europe, our current RNI financial instrument, could support Bauhaus initiatives, how we could better mainstream the topics in the current work program 23-24. We are still drafting the work programs. We are also discussing and negotiating it with our 27 member states in particular. So I cannot say a lot in detail currently on 23-24 because it's still an ongoing process, but still I will say a few words. Barbara and her colleagues have come up with a lot of excellent ideas, inspirations, which we try to take up. Some of them go beyond what we can currently do or what is maybe politically or legally possible. And I'm sure Barbara will say much more about it in the following presentation. We started right after the announcement of the Bauhaus initiative by Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, with already with the very little time we had to include some activities in our Horizon Europe work program. Those of you who are familiar, just quickly to recall that we have in this program so-called three pillars. The one is absolutely bottom-up excellence of science, and particularly Marie Curie programs, so where we don't give any thematic prescriptions or ideas, where we can better target and address societal challenges and global challenges. This is in the so-called Pillar 2 of Horizon Europe, which is composed of 6 clusters. Barbara was already mentioning some in her reply to one of the questions of the participants. And there in particular the clusters 2, 4, 5, and 6, which are quite relevant for Bauhaus. 2, which is dealing a lot with culture and creative industries. 4, with the digital dimension. 5, cluster 5, with energy, transport, climate science, and cluster 6 with a whole array of important Green Deal related issues such as the food system, circular economy, ecosystems, biodiversity. So also a very important cluster. I'm in my team dealing in particular with cluster 5 and 6, which have for the overall timeline of the program a budget of 25 billion, but of course covering a huge range of different topics. In 21-22, we managed already to include a so-called lighthouse demonstrator call, which we integrated in the mission program. Some of you might know that one of the novelties of this new commission was to launch so-called missions, which are mostly related to Green Deal, such as on cities. I think the cities mission was already mentioned, also on climate adaptation, oceans, and soils. And then we have a cancer mission. And this demonstrator project was construed as a pilot project. So we wanted to support 5 pilot projects who would gather already some ideas and examples, which could be used then for future Bauhaus project. Huge interest. I will say a few words a little bit more later on this. As part of the cities mission, there was also a call on collaborative local governance models linked to the renovation of urban environment. And then in the clusters 2, 4, 5, we included some actions, notably on affordable housing and the built environment. So this was for 21-22. The Lighthouse Demonstrator project, the call just, so the evaluations were just finalized. We have been announcing already the winners. I wanted to outline here that for us it was very important to make sure that apart from the excellence in science criteria, which is prevailing, of course, in our calls, we wanted to ensure a geographical balance. So if you look at the project winners, we have managed to have a quite good coverage north, south, east, west. And in one case, we had to I mean the evaluators in the agency downgraded one project and gave one project the preference as it complemented better in geographical terms the picture. Now turning to 23-24 very briefly, as I said, we are still in the drafting process. The programs are not yet public, even if there have been already some leaks, but it's constantly changing. We are discussing with member states. We hope to have a consolidated, finalized work program ready by the end of this year, and where we are targeting, in particular, as I said, the clusters 2, 4, also 5 and 6. There will be most likely dedicated topics, so which exclusively mention Bauhaus in the cold topic in the range of 65. But we have foreseen also topics which are on substance very closely linked to the Bauhaus idea. So where we reach a much higher funding rate, going from education, training, the aspect of use of materials, product design, of course, the energy efficiency issues, built environment, bio-based products, etc., etc. So I think there will be a whole range of interesting topics, and I hope there will be huge interest in applying for them. This brings me already to the end of my presentation, as we still have Barbara and then a Q&A. I have, as you've seen, I have focused on Horizon Europe, which is the area I'm working in DG in DG R&I. Just to say that Horizon Europe is not the only program which is as a financial instrument contributing to the Bauhaus activities. JRC, our Joint Research Center, as the chief coordinator of this initiative, has made sure that many departments are involved in the thinking in programming actions. And I would like to highlight in particular the LIFE program, which is run and managed by DG Environment, which is contributing to Bauhaus. Of course, the European Regional Development Fund, ERDF, which has quite substantial amounts which are channeled into investment infrastructure. We have also the Single Market Program, which is trying to address Bauhaus, Digital Europe, Creative Europe, Erasmus. So just to say that there are a number of other related instruments which try to support this very interesting and important initiative. Agatha, that's from my side. Thank you very much, and I remain of course available for the rest of the conference for any Q&As which might come up. Thank you, and back to you.
Thank you, Bernd. I'm taking over now, so we are very grateful. I had one question, but I think you already answered it. So that the last question that I had was related to some other sources of funding, indeed. So you mentioned quite some of them. So I think we will still come back to you with some follow-up questions after Barbara's presentation, indeed. So now will be the time for our final intervention, and we are waiting impatiently for the intervention of Professor Barbara Widera. She's an architect, and as I mentioned at the beginning, working at on daily basis on the Wrocław University of Technology, dealing with numerous topics, but one of them is in European Bauhaus now, and she was one of the authors and rapporteurs of this report, that it's dealing with links between Bauhaus and Horizon Europe. And we are very, very curious. What are your recommendations as a group of experts, and your opinions on the future on the future actions, of Bauhaus and Horizon Europe, maybe some future calls, or what Agata mentioned at the beginning, some ambitions maybe to have another EU mission even on that. So the floor is yours, and the slides are coming up, I think, so.
Okay, thank you very, very much. I'm really excited and honored and happy to be here, especially having heard Angela's presentation and Bernd's presentation. When I hear Angela, I'm really happy to know that Joint Research Center is so well prepared and so into deep with citizen engagement, which became really obligatory now for any calls related to NEB. And when I hear Bernd, that's something that makes me really happy, and that brings a peace of mind, which is not very common. But knowing that Horizon Europe, in terms of research and innovation, goes into the right direction, like really right direction, this is great. And indeed, I had this privilege to participate in a preparation of Horizon Europe, New European Bauhaus Nexus report. But honestly, it was Bernd who was the father, and he brought all of us together, was very, very patient, and helped a lot with that. So we only provided some feedback, the group of experts that I have in mind. And in comparison to the speakers we just heard, I'm just a modest researcher and architect, but I'm really happy that I was able to contribute. And one of the questions, I think it was from Marta, one of the questions was what New European Bauhaus really wants to achieve. And this is also very, very important to me, because if you are here, then it means that you know more or less what New European Bauhaus is about. Having heard Bernd's presentation, you already know a lot. But what I wanted to say, that the New European Bauhaus is about a revolution, and we need a revolution because we are in crisis. And this is the very serious climate crisis. So there is, it's not so nice to know, but we don't have much of the choice. And I believe sustainability, and I think you know this, that sustainability is not the option, it's the only option. Because if you take a look at the scenarios, if you compare where we are now and where we could be in a couple of years if we don't act timely and if we do not act now, then now we are at the point where we are familiar with risks and we need to move, we need to provide a transition to climate resilient development. And I'm sharing with you just two slides from IPCC report. You can find the link to the full version of the report at the bottom of the slides. You will receive the presentation. So I really want to encourage you to take a look at the scenarios. And one of the biggest issue is related to the built environment, which is responsible, unfortunately, for as much as 40% of global greenhouse gases emission. So that's the point when we need to act. And when we are talking about the revolution, then this is probably the main reason why we are referring to the revolution that already has taken place in 20th century. I'm sharing with you these old postcards from Weissenhof exhibition in Stuttgart from 1927. And if you compare what is at the background, the traditional buildings with wooden structure and with these steep roofs with not enough lighting, sometimes overcrowded, unfortunately, and then you compare what was delivered by Bauhaus Dessau, then maybe we can realize how difficult it was, because it was complete change of mindset. And the architects also, they faced a crisis, but it was a crisis in architecture, in built environment, because they were asked and they had a mission to deliver modern, affordable architecture for people, and they had to do it fast. So the building techniques that they had, they were already common. This was obviously not enough. And they were really focused on providing the highest level of functionality, using contemporary materials, new structural solutions based on the most contemporary materials, which were concrete, glass, and steel. And then it was all very sophisticated, with the highest level of aesthetics and beauty embedded in antiquity, in philosophy, based on sacred geometry and universal harmony, because they really believed that there is something like universal order, some rules that are common, and they believe that if you understand how the world is organized, then you can produce optimal results. And sometimes we forget that one of the main purposes of this architecture was to provide reconnecting with nature. So the solutions, the spatial solutions, the structural solutions were aimed at opening space, at providing daylighting, correct natural ventilation, and always provide people with contact with nature. So this was the purpose, and this was achieved with the tools they had and they were developing. But as I mentioned, it was really sophisticated. It was very high level of aesthetics. And unfortunately, Angela mentioned that in her presentation, that the citizens, the users that belong to a kind of vulnerable groups, they do not always have an access to more advanced tools, they do not always understand what's going on. And if the revolution happens too fast, then not everyone is just ready for it. So yes, it is a huge difference, a huge step, and a huge change of mindset. And today we know that, well, of course, Bauhaus of 20th century and in general, the modern movement in architecture, it was great. It transformed the built environment that we know today. But we also know that if we continue building with concrete, steel, and glass, then this is the scenario that we have to have in mind. So the revolution related to New European Bauhaus is that we need to transform the built environment to avoid the catastrophe. But we have to do it in a way that is accepted by the citizens. So we have to ask them, no matter the age, no matter the gender, we just have to involve everyone. And only this way, this can be embraced and understood, and it can be welcome, because people have a choice. They have to like the houses in which they are living. You have seen one of the comments from Poland that Angela presented, that the building blocks, they are disgusting. She didn't speak about functionality. She didn't speak about price. It was disgusting. She didn't like it. So the aesthetics cannot be underestimated. And these three elements, as I said, sustainability is absolutely necessary today. We know it. But we have to use the technologies in a way that is accepted by people, by end users, and well, and we have to do it fast. So when I heard Madam President Ursula von der Leyen announcing the new European Bauhaus initiative, to me, it was like she would say to the world, you may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. And this is something that I was very, very excited about. This is why I happily, with all my heart and soul, as we say in European Bauhaus represents the soul aspect, I was very happy to participate in the workshop. So Bernd has presented amazingly the basics of the European Bauhaus, and I'm trying to repeat, and I'm trying to emphasize that for any proposal that wants to deal with new European Bauhaus, it is absolutely necessary to think as a triangle. I'm not sure if I'm showing the nice triangle, but I hope that you understand what I mean. If you remove one piece, then it will not be working. Then sustainability is often focused on technology. It could be low-tech. It could be based on earthen blocks and very simple techniques, but sometimes it is focused on very advanced technologies like robotics, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, and this is great. But when scientists come to the floor, they sometimes forget that they work in a kind of silos, and not everyone can understand it. So I think we have passed through the period when in architecture the technology was at the first place, and now in research and innovation, this is absolutely necessary to think in this triangle, to involve society into the process and to do it in a reasonable way, so they really have an access and they can participate. And we have to make sure that it's not only us architects who like the outcome, but people have to like it. So sorry for having repeated this a couple of times. As Bernd mentioned, the Horizon Europe is absolutely a key instrument to support the European Bauhaus. And coming directly to this workshop and to the results of this workshop, I want to emphasize that the main purpose, the main outcome, of course, of the workshop was the report, Horizon Europe, New European Bauhaus Nexus report. But the main purpose was to provide recommendations that could be valuable for the Commission to support the development of the NEP initiative even more. So we have divided the report into three pieces, three periods. The first is the ongoing action. And then what's coming in next 2 years, 23, 24, the midterm action, and our long-term vision beyond 2024. As Bernd mentioned, it is not always possible, and we do realize that, but it's always great to have a vision. And regarding the actual opportunities, I would like to invite you to take a look at Annex 1 to the report. I will provide you with a link to the report, and it will be at the end of my presentation, so you will receive it. And I truly hope you will spend some time reading that. And we have taken the approach similar to what Commission has already proposed. I mean to flag the topics that are of interest of New European Bauhaus. And to my surprise, to our surprise, we figured out that only few topics were already linked to New European Bauhaus initiative, while a lot of them should be. So I think this is something that will happen because this is relatively easy, and the purpose of this was to stress the need for the New European Bauhaus to be inherent for the topics which must fully integrate all core values of the NEP. So I will repeat it again. The action has to be fully sustainable. And by the way, sustainability covers the health issue more than anything, because sustainability is about safety of the environment, and that involves human beings. So what's more than health? And that's absolutely relevant. And sustainability, inclusive,ness and beauty. At this point, we have identified two clusters. Cluster 5, okay, I will start with 5, which is also very, very close to my heart. It's climate, energy, and mobility. which is very much focused on energy and on effective action in terms of energy and in overcoming climate crisis. That's what I wanted to say. But then cluster 2, which is culture, creative, inclusive society. And even if I read it together, these clusters, they cover the biggest number of topics which are relevant to NEB. And when I look at them, it's pretty obvious, and it was pretty obvious also for the participant of the workshop, that these clusters should be interconnected. So that's the vision for the future. For the midterm goals, to provide closer connections even within the Commission, because New European Bauhaus became a common purpose, a common language, an initiative that is connecting particular DGs, and it is really great to see that. And in the midterm action, we suggest more focus on the regenerative approach, on bioclimatic design or bio-based materials in 4 modes of inquiry: fundamental research, applied research, demonstrative action, and educational, because we have to remember that, first of all, Bauhaus has taken the approach of teaching people, of educating society, and now we have fantastic tools to do it, so we just have to do it. There are some systemic challenges that need to be addressed, and they include cities as carbon sinks, construction sector, obviously, agriculture, forestry, and other land use, then design, crafts, cultural heritage, digital tools, innovation test beds, regulation, policy, data, urban sprawl demonstration projects. So this is all very, very important, and I'm pretty sure it will be reflected in the work program that Bernd partially revealed. And also in the report in Annex 2, you can find the examples of specific action. So I will just show it you, the 2 of them. For cluster 2, culture, creative, inclusive society, there is an action: educate society on NEP using university clusters and living lab. And the expected outcome, because we do not provide the receipt, we just suggest what should be possibly done and what we can expect, what should be the expected outcome. So here the expected outcome should be enable European integration and societal cohesion in the NEP principles. And for, let's say, cluster 6, which I already mentioned, food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment, the action is biomimetic, bioclimatic, and bio-inspired design for buildings. And expected outcome would be improving the efficient and sustainable use of resources through innovative production, reducing greenhouse gas emission. And maybe just for a second, I will come back to cluster 1. That was one of the questions, right? Because it covers health. So here also it's one of the examples, one of the action, improving the 24-hour activity cycle, and the expected outcome would be new evidence of benefits for health in the built environment. So indeed, I will encourage you to take a look at the whole body of the report, and the most inspiring part would be the vision beyond 2024, and some of the suggested activities would possibly or impossibly, but we will see, will be related to integrating European missions on cities, climate adaptation, and soil. Another opportunity to establish new mission on the built environment. Then European Transition Super Labs, worldwide partnerships program to advance NEP goals, and NEP initiatives on higher and broader education to involve young people, to involve older citizens, to involve professionals, to go far beyond the scam of student and teacher. And anyone who wants to make his or her house greener should know where to come. So we are suggesting university clusters that are open for wider public. And the ultimate objective is, of course, to develop a vision on how 10 billion people can be accommodated on Earth in a sustainable, inclusive and aesthetic way. So there is some immediate action that we suggest: biogenic carbon storage, ending waste, enhancing biodiversity, engaging people and communities, fair and just transition data. And well, the new European Bauhaus offers unprecedented opportunities to transform the built environment using the best of advanced technologies while learning from nature. So we need to make this revolution. We need to redesign our cities and in general the built environment. So this is what the new European Bauhaus is about. We need to redesign it. We need to do it using smart communication networks, fossil-free sustainable mobility, correctly integrated and efficient renewable energy sources. This must be, however, done in a co-creative way, based on research and expert knowledge, because it's not giving the responsibility to society. We did what you wanted, so what can you expect? No, it's based on the experts' knowledge, but in constant dialogue with citizens and with societal approval. And well, whatever we design today, we must respect our heritage, the heritage in Europe, of which we are very, very proud. But this must be done in a way that is open for innovation, optimal performance, which we also must understand with all the respect to the tradition. Then we must be open to contemporary aesthetics, creativity, and overall the understanding of biological systems. So I could talk about this for hours, and the most important message that I have for you, that probably only this way we can leave something valuable to the next generations so that they can look into the future with more optimism and enthusiasm. And as promised, here is the link to the report, including annexes. So you have full access. Everything is transparent. And well, I'm very, very much looking forward the further development of the new European Bauhaus initiative. I truly believe we are making history here. We are kind of trying to contribute to overcome the climate crisis. And what can I say? You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Professor Barbara Videra. That was really inspiring and a different look at our let's say Horizon Europe, since we are very much used to the way it's being formulated, and this is a different angle that we can look at, and it's very inspiring and interesting. And let's see what will happen with currently discussed programs. As already Bernd mentioned before, as it comes to Horizon Europe. Okay, I think we are now having still few minutes for questions, and well, let's use them. I don't see anything in the chat. There was one question, but Bernd already answered about the possible sources of information about the different programs that are funding or contributing to European Bauhaus. That's the question. I hope you can still all see in the chat the document Bernd said. So thanks a lot for that. I have another question to you, if I may. That's the question related to the freshly announced results of the call you mentioned on lighthouses. And I was wondering, maybe you can give, since this is already well public, maybe you can give one of the examples, so maybe a bit more detailed. You mentioned just the areas, the broad topics. Maybe you are able to share a bit more information with us about one of the examples of the project selected.
Bernd, can you do this? Because for obvious reasons, I cannot.
Yeah, that's the question to Bernd. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, on the 5 lighthouse projects, I would just like say that the grant agreements have not yet been signed. We aim at signature in September. So I would not like to say too much at this stage, if you understand, because it's still not excluded that with one or the others there might be an issue from a legal point of view, and then we have to take someone else from the ranking list. We've been asked. You know that usually we wait until the grant agreements are signed, and then we make the announcement. But since there was such a huge interest to see the progress on this pilot projects, and our president was traveling to an event where she wanted to make the announcement, so we already said that we have selected 5. I think what at this stage, what was important, what I mentioned was the geographical balance, that we have a number of projects which are covering also Central, Eastern Europe. We have the North-South dimension. There were many, particularly from South Europe, and who included also the coastal regions and also the outermost regions. And we had to do some geographical rebalancing to make sure that Central Eastern Europe is properly included. There were good examples. Also with the Danish lead to work on concepts of city planning, use of bio-based, in particular wood material. Barbara, I'm sure you're happy to hear this, and to come up with some blueprints, where we hope that with these, once the more ideas will be developed for these lighthouse demonstrations, that this could be then taken up by other projects for other activities. So we want to ensure also some kind of consistency in further calls. We have, of course, the cities mission, who's now who has just selected 100 candidates, and where the Bauhaus aspect will play an enormously important role. We will come with a more detailed description of the projects which have won, but as I said, there can still be a change in one or two of them. But important, I think, to say for us, it was and Barbara was a leading figure in the expert report. We have a lot of very good input from Central Eastern Europe, and I think what we are trying, and you could see it with Barbara's enthusiasm, what we are trying to address with Bauhaus, I think is particularly well received in Central Eastern Europe, to combine sustainability and the transformation of carbon intensive regions is enormously difficult. I know this, as I said, from my previous time, but then to address also the affordability aspects, the social aspects, the inclusion aspects. And that's something where I think projects from Central Eastern Europe can contribute a lot.
Thanks a lot. Indeed, that's a huge challenge, also in Poland, but not only. And to have different visions, different possibilities to face those challenges, it's quite crucial. And of course, I understand that contracts are not yet signed, but I was hoping maybe for a bit of sneak peek, since this is something very new. But okay, we will come back then to that more in the autumn. I see that there's a question coming, and it's already introduced as problematic. So this is a question, actually, I think to all of you. If Angela is still with us, maybe you could also intervene. And it's indeed a bit of disruptive question, I would say, since indeed the old Bauhaus was not really asking that much about the people's opinion. And why it's so important at the moment, because we can actually also, as Kajetan is asking, maybe not always as just citizens or residents understand everything. and maybe we are not so, as just a member of society, not really so willing to accept those changes or to be open to those new solutions. They might be also a bit difficult. So maybe just a new approach, new solutions should be simply cheap because everyone will accept it then. That's the problematic part of most problematic part of this question. So who would like you?
I would love to answer this question, and maybe if Angela and Bernd want to add something to it. And first of all, I wanted to answer it because it comes from a very dear colleague of mine. Hello, Kajetan. And the second thing that Bernd kind of already mentioned that being from Slovak Republic, you can understand the Eastern European soul better than anyone else. And in fact, in Germany, in France, the architects did not ask so much about the opinion of the citizens, but the participation in architecture started in Poland. And the architects connected with Siam conference, Cirkusowie, Brukalscy, they really started this, this approach to ask people and to discuss with them how they want to see the built environment. It is a fact that these people usually represented a common point of view, so it was much easier. There were small communities sharing the same aesthetics, but well, this was a good start. And this participatory approach was, in my opinion, the only new thing that was introduced in European architecture in 20th century, except from modernism, because this was the postmodern approach. And this is very, very valuable. So it's not a new thing. It's not new kid on the block. It's just something that we have to do. And I don't think that cheap solutions will be optimal, because it's a balance. And even if you ask a person who cannot afford much, is it good to buy cheap stuff? Then some wise people would answer that they are not rich enough to buy cheap stuff. So the same, definitely the same applies to the built environment. So we have to find the solutions that are optimal, find the right balance between affordability and the performance. And this is the only way. We have a couple of examples. We also provide the examples in the report, some let me say inspirations. But one of the purposes of New European Bauhaus prizes, which will be delivered during the New European Bauhaus Festival. I'm already excited because I also am going to be there. But the New European Bauhaus prizes, it is a part of an inspiration. It's, as I said before, it is not about delivering the solutions and telling people this is healthy, you need to eat that, but I don't like it. So it's about finding the way, and the New European Bauhaus prizes opens the opportunity for amazing projects to propose something, to propose a new approach, and this is also the voice of society. From what Angela has presented, the results of the workshop, I can see that a lot of ideas that were brought on the floor during the workshop that were represented also in the proposals submitted to the festival. So even if you take a look at the New European Bauhaus prizes, you will see that the community approach is really one of the main points. I don't want to refer to any particular proposals, but you can clearly find them. And it's about reconnecting with nature. It's about prioritizing people and places that need it the most, but also in terms of circularity. So it's a pretty good coverage, and you can observe that even for some completed projects, not just for ideas, but for completed projects, it is already there. So now I will finish in a second, but the authors of this project will receive the media packet, and they will be able to promote it. So this is something, this is this is the core, and around this core, the initiative is built. So it is really about doing this together, not to giving the solutions that might not be necessarily embraced. And Angela wanted to answer the question.
Yes, thank you very much, Angela. I hope you can, yes, we can see you, and just the mic, and the floor is yours.
Well, I think I wrote too fast. I mean, it's not that we have all the answers for the questions. I find the question interesting and intriguing, because I would revert the question: why shouldn't you know, the new European Bauhaus initiative care about the opinion of residents? And why, you know, this idea of who may not understand the changes, I think it's pertains to an old model that is called the deficit model, you know, or seeing citizens as people that don't have knowledge, not as epistemic actors, whereas we have a bit moved in the last decades with this thinking. So the way, at least, we conceive of participatory processes and engaging citizens understand is actually a, you know, it's a recognition that we are all knowledge holders, right? And in the last year, when we did this citizen engagements around the new European Bauhaus, this is quite it is quite revealing, because we came there with a question and a riddle, right, on the beautiful and the sustainable and so on. And people said, look, you don't have the picture there, the whole picture there. That's what people told us, all right? When with their own experience of the way that, you know, they leave space, they leave private space, the way they leave public space, the ways they were not allowed to leave public space. So this question, I could understand, you know, this question in certain contexts. But in the new European Bauhaus, we are all epistemic actors, right? We all know how we want to live, and especially also we all know by what values we want to live, right? And this was very prominent also on the results of the conversations, you know. The second most important thing was about connectedness, was about providing spaces for intergenerational you know, connectedness. It was about living with dignity when you are old, and planning it now, and not thinking about it when you are 75 or 80, but, you know, thinking about it now. So there is, you know, a lot of ideas out there on how we want to live, and how we want to live together, on how we want to connect to nature, and so on and so forth. And some, you know, professionals have an idea, but people that live their everyday lives also have ideas. And that's what we do with citizen engagement, is to gather on that experience, on that lived experience of people.
Thanks a lot. Bernd, you still would like to add something, I see. Okay.
Yes, if I may, just very briefly. I mean, first of all, to confirm also in my observation from, I mean, we were involved from the very beginning in the conception of the new European Bauhaus with JRC, and this was really construed as a bottom-up approach. There was this very long consultation phase to collect ideas. This definitely stems from the objective which our Commission President had formulated that Bauhaus should make the European Green Deal tangible to our citizen. But if you look also wider at the European Green Deal, we have fairly soon worked on a so-called climate pact, which has gathered a lot of societal actors to look for pledges, because this huge transformation we are aiming at with the Green Deal and with the Bauhaus cannot be done only top down, or cannot be done exclusively top down with laws, regulations, but has to be both top down, bottom up. What Cayetan is, of course, also aiming at is looking at affordability and cheap solutions with this a bit provocative but very good question. It's true, we have to acknowledge that this huge transformative process, including Bauhaus actions, will not come charge of free. I mean, if you look at investment costs, it goes in billions and trillions. We have to deal a lot also with, we have to look not only at technological solutions, but at societal solutions, social innovation approaches, behavioral changes. We will have to work also with carbon pricing. I know that's something which is not very popular in many countries. No, we are currently reforming the emission trading systems. There's a proposal to widen it to transport and buildings, and this will not be cheap. And we have to look at first of all, of course, at compensatory measures. There's a Just Transition Fund, a social climate transition fund. But we have to look at innovative solutions which make these solutions affordable. Because if we don't manage to take the citizens with us on this journey, we will lose it, and we will never manage to this transformation. And the feeling was with Bauhaus, which is appealing not only to the brain, but also to the senses, to emotions, to aesthetics, that this could be a good approach to take as many as possible with us on this journey. After all, it will also mostly happen in our cities, spatial planning, where obviously the consultation of residents is important. We tend to say not in my backyard, please, when we come up with nice projects like windmills, and experience shows that this is much more sustainable if we manage to involve the citizens as much as possible. Back to you.
Thank you very much. I have a feeling we could continue for at least another hour, and we already passed our time. So I think we have to conclude. Thanks for all your insights. It was, as I already said, inspirational, and it's giving another dimension to what we are doing also in the research and innovation world, and it's going definitely beyond. And citizen engagement is always a challenge. Citizen science is also a challenge, and all those things are meeting somehow here. And we will continue observing that and being also involved. We also actually having one of the side events of the new European Bauhaus Festival at our premises here in Brussels at the office. So we are involving each other's and ourselves as much as possible in those topics, to understand also a bit more and to learn from each other how to explore those topics in different programs. We have a map, let's say, or list of programs that we could maybe influence a bit as well on national, regional levels. That's quite important, and I'm saying that from the position of the RNI funding agency in Poland. So this is also something to have a look on, and to maybe look for some ideas there to fund some other programs. Yeah, that was, as I said, very, very well spent 2 hours together with you. Thanks for accepting our invitations. Thanks for being with us, joining us, and sharing your views on this topic. And small apologies from my side on behalf of Agata. She had to leave already for some other meeting. But as I said, we are both very thankful, and we will stay in touch surely and come back with some other events, maybe also a physical. Let's see after the summer. And also big thank you to all participants for active role, for asking questions during the whole event. I hope you received your answers, and in case there's still something left, you may always contact us, and we will try to help you. And as I said, you will also receive slides from our speakers later on today. So that's it from our side today. Thank you very much, Barbara, Angela, Bernd, also to Marcin and to Agata, and have a nice afternoon. Goodbye.
Thank you, Eva. Bye-bye, colleagues.
Great to see you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All the best.
Bye-bye.